All right, I am absolutely thrilled to share this explainer with you today because we are looking at an incredible true-to-life narrative. I mean, this story is just packed with raw ambition, a really devastating misunderstanding, and ultimately, an unbelievable arc of redemption. Today, we're going to unpack the psychology of success, the crushing weight of pride, and honestly, the profound power of forgiveness. So let's dive right into this core question. What actually happens when a newly appointed district magistrate, a guy sitting at the absolute pinnacle of local power and prestige, drives through a village only to cross paths with his unjustly divorced wife, who is out there herding goats on the side of a dirt road? It's a moment of pure, almost cinematic, dramatic irony. But to really wrap our heads around the gravity of this encounter, we kind of have to rewind and look at how these two lives collided, shattered, and then split apart in the first place. Section 1. Marriage and Suspicion. Let's jump back to the beginning to see how this whole tragic chain of events was set into motion. We start with a young man named Arjun. And Arjun had one singular, all-consuming goal, and that was to become an IAS officer. He was grinding through this insane 10-hour daily study routine, up reading late into the night. And amidst all this intense pressure, he enters into an arranged marriage with a woman named Savita. And initially, it's a really happy union. You know, Savita is supportive, she's caring, and she's constantly prioritizing his success way over her own comfort. But, as we know, things can unravel in an absolute instant. The pressure reaches this critical breaking point when Arjun actually fails his IAS exam. Obviously, the tension in the household just skyrockets. And in this highly charged, super stressful environment, some money suddenly goes missing from the house. What follows is this rapid, tragic domino effect that completely destroys their household peace. Arjun's mother falsely accuses Savita of stealing the money. She explicitly blames her for bringing bad luck into the home, basically claiming that Savita's presence is the direct reason Arjun failed his exam. Savita swore on God that she was innocent. She's begging to be believed. But the real crucial blow here wasn't actually the accusation itself. It was Arjun's devastating silence. He just stood there. He actively chose not to defend his wife. And Savita's heartbreaking realization was this: today your silence has pronounced a verdict bigger than my innocence. That silence right there, that broke the foundation of their marriage entirely. It was just an absolute betrayal of trust. Which brings us to Section 2, Divorce and Separate Paths. Unable to live with that baseless suspicion, and especially a husband who wouldn't stand by her, the marriage reaches its absolute end. The court officially dissolves the union. And what we see next is a deeply broken couple being sent in two completely different, incredibly painful directions. In the immediate aftermath, Savita has to return to her ailing father. And she's bearing this heavy societal shame that, unfortunately, often unfairly accompanies a divorced woman in her village. This intense stress actually causes her father's health to rapidly deteriorate. Now, on the other side of things, Arjun completely isolates himself. He makes this rigid, almost punishing vow. He will not return home until he achieves his dream of becoming an officer. He literally turns his studies into his one and only remaining purpose in life. Section 3. 8 years of struggle. This is where we examine the dual tracks of their lives. Over the next near decade, both Arjun and Savita demonstrate some incredible, unwavering resilience. But they do it in vastly different ways and honestly for entirely different stakes. I really want to emphasize the sheer weight of this number. 8. 8 grueling years. Just think about what 8 years of separate suffering, consecutive failures, and relentless hard work actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. That is a massive portion of a human life spent in sheer survival mode, waking up every single day with this heavy burden to carry. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast between them. For Arjun, the struggle meant multiple failed exams, year after year. Completely isolated, punishing himself with his studies. He was fighting for power and status. He basically locked himself away from the world. But for Savita, the struggle was entirely different. After her father tragically passes away because they couldn't afford medical care, she is left entirely alone to support her younger sister, Neelam. So what does she do? She takes out a loan, buys 2 goats, and builds a livelihood entirely from scratch. She manages to fund her sister's education, and she refuses to ever beg for a single dime. She was fighting for basic survival, sure, but also for immense personal dignity. Driven by the belief that when you haven't reached your destination, you cannot stop, Arjun finally reaches his absolute last attempt. After 8 years of consecutive, crushing failures, he takes the exam one final time. He pours every ounce of his soul into it, and finally, the immense struggle pays off. He passes. He achieves his lifelong dream and is officially appointed as an IAS officer. Section 4. Return as DM. So Arjun is assigned to be the new district magistrate, the collector. And fate dictates that he is sent right back to the very village where his life originally fell apart. It is a totally triumphant professional return, but as you can imagine, a profoundly heavy emotional one. Arriving as the collector with this full convoy and massive village welcome, he gazes out of his car window and spots a familiar face. It's Savita, herding goats by the dirt road. He's totally stunned. Later, he asks a local elder about her and learns the devastating truth. He finds out about her father's death. He learns exactly how she survived, crushing poverty with total honesty, paying for her sister's schooling without ever asking for a handout. In that exact moment, it hits him. Arjun has this crushing realization of Savita's absolute innocence and the massive, life-altering mistake he made. Overwhelmed with immense guilt, Arjun desperately seeks her out for a private apology. He tells her he was weak, that he just couldn't tell truth from lies back then. But Savita responds with a really powerful truth of her own. Some wounds heal with time, but their scars remain forever. She rejects his apology because, let's be real, a simple "I'm sorry" cannot magically erase 8 years of intense suffering, the tragic loss of her father, and the daily grinding humiliation she had to endure completely alone. But then, an unexpected crisis forces them together. A sudden, violent flash flood hits the village road. Savita and her entire livelihood, her goats, are trapped in the raging, rushing water. The collector's office gets the emergency call, and Arjun, he doesn't just send out a standard rescue team, he rushes to the scene himself. Throwing caution and, frankly, his high-ranking status completely to the wind, he physically jumps into the treacherous waters, risking his own life to pull Savita and her animals to safety. Section 5, Repentance and New Beginning. This life-or-death moment really shifts everything. After the flood, those rigid walls of pride, hurt, and societal expectation finally begin to crumble. And the craziest part? This doesn't just happen privately behind closed doors. It happens in front of the entire village. It actually starts with Arjun's mother. She stands before the village and admits, "I ruined an innocent girl's life with false accusations." She confesses that her silence and her baseless blame haunted her every single day for 8 years. I mean, admitting a terrible mistake, especially a highly public one like that takes immense, humbling courage, and it perfectly sets the stage for what happens next. Then Arjun steps forward. And I want you to really notice the stark contrast here between Arjun's cowardly silence 8 years ago and this massive, vulnerable public confession. He tells the entire village, "I stand here not as a collector, but as a guilty husband." He openly acknowledges that while passing the IS exam was incredibly hard, facing his own terrible mistakes is much, much harder. And then he reveals this deeply kept secret to everyone listening. "I never remarried. Only you are in my heart." We see a complete transformation here. They move from a past defined by silence and baseless suspicion to a present defined by a public apology, radical accountability, and choosing forgiveness. Faced with Arjun's genuine, undeniable repentance, Savita makes a powerful choice. She decides she no longer wants to live forever with the pain of the past. She chooses to give life a new chance and agrees to remarry Arjun, stepping into a future where they can finally face challenges together. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. Can 8 years of deep, scarring pain truly be erased by the courage to admit a mistake? While the scars may always remain, this story shows us that true success isn't just about passing an exam or gaining some prestigious title. It's about having the integrity to own your failures, the humility to seek redemption, and the incredible strength it takes to forgive. Think about where in your own life a courageous apology or the willingness to forgive might completely rewrite the future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.